now to Deputy Charlie McConalogue. Thank you, Minister. Deputy McConalogue.
Concorda, and I would like to very much welcome the motion being put forward tonight by the Independence for Change group and proposed by Deputy Maureen O'Sullivan. And certainly I would support a lot of what she outlines in her motion. However, we are also putting forward an amendment to the motion which we feel represents our own party's position in relation to it well, and deals with what we believe needs to be the most important thing which needs to happen, and we need to keep the pressure on in relation to, and that's enforcement and ensuring that the standards that are in place and that the welfare of animal is prioritised at government level, and that the resources are in place to ensure that the regulatory system there works to do what it was set out to do, and indeed that we ensure that there is no instances of animal cruelty and that welfare is paramount. Deputy O'Sullivan's motion outlines the progress that has been made since the introduction of the Animal Health and Welfare Act of 2013, and also outlines the fact that our public policy needs to be directed towards ensuring that all possible measures are taken to protect the welfare of animals. The motion also calls for the introduction of a comprehensive system of monitoring conditions in which animals are kept and robust regulations to protect animals from abuse, cruel treatment, neglect and poor living conditions. I think our key point would be that we feel that there is a very strong and robust regulatory framework in place at the moment as a result of the Animal Health and Welfare Act of 2013, and that ensures that high standards in animal welfare can be maintained and the strict sanctioning is in place for offenders. We also believe that Animal Health and Welfare Act in 2013, the importance of it giving authorised officers the authorised officer status to employees of the Irish Society for the Protection of Cruelty to Animals, the Dublin Society for the Protection of Cruelty to Animals and the Turf Club to carry out welfare-related duties. We now believe it is absolutely crucial, and our motion also calls, Minister, to ensure that the funding is in place to actually back that up, and that we see real progress in relation to the monitoring of animal welfare and ensuring that there is no place for cruelty, and indeed where there are instances of it, that as a state we are equipped to properly respond to it, to root it out, and indeed to ensure that the power of the law is brought to bear on those who abuse it. Since the introduction of the Animal Welfare Act, which my own party would have been involved in the initial stages of, and in terms of the first draft, and indeed in government previously as well, Fianna Fáil would have introduced the Wildlife Amendment Bill of 2010, and indeed the Dog Breeding Establishment Act of 2010 as well. But since that Animal Health and Welfare Bill was introduced in 2013, and I think the Minister referred to it, Minister, in your own contribution as well, there have been 34 prosecutions, successful prosecutions, taken by the Department of Agriculture, and I understand that there is an additional 26 currently ongoing, and that additional prosecutions also are being taken at regional level by the Garda Síochána. So I think, Minister, and I do believe there is inadequacies currently in relation to the backup and the support that is available to ensure those are implemented fully. And I think we all would agree, people in this House and across the board, the vast majority of people have a great care and respect for animals, and they play a very significant part in their lives. In the case of those who keep animals as pets, and indeed I also, as the party's agricultural spokesperson, engaging with the farming community, see first hand as well the care and respect that the farming community also take in their husbandry of animals on a daily basis. But it is crucial that we have robust structures in place to ensure those that don't respect animals, or those that oversee and carry out cruelty to them, that there is means and ways of ensuring that where there are reports of that it's acted on immediately, and also that there is the proper resources in place so that, there is an ability among those staff and those officers who oversee the legislation to actually have a strong awareness to to instances of abuse, so that they can actually act on it immediately. And to that end, I do think we need to see an increase in relation to the spending that comes from the Department of Agriculture to resource the agencies that enforce this legislation, because, as has been pointed out by previous speakers, a dozen officers covering most of the country is simply not enough, and we need to see that the agencies properly equipped to deal with that. Also, in relation to the work carried out by our local authorities and the veterinary sections within the Minister, they are also under significant pressure, and they administer a very important role in relation to this. That is also something I believe that the department needs to address, and that needs to be ramped up. Obviously, before the Animal Health and Welfare Act of 2013, there was very disparate regulations and laws around this, and it was very important that was brought together into one piece of legislation which was clear and indeed which could be administered and properly enforced. I think the introduction of fines was welcome and is proving to help streamline the system. The Animal Health and Welfare Act introduced a standard fine of a maximum of €5,000, but also in major indictment fines which could range from €100,000 to €250,000, and those were welcome and heavy penalties to be introduced into the oversight system. The other key thing that the bill did as well, Minister, was it ensured that in terms of an animal's health, and its cruelty issues were also brought together and dealt with in the one light, and that they weren't separated. And before, the regulation really looked at those two in a separate manner. So overall, I wish to thank Deputy O'Sullivan and Independence for Change for bringing this forward, and move the Fianna Fáil amendment to the motion.